Sharp Football over there has this kind of dead center, right? 17th as far as strength of schedule goes, so right in the middle of the pack. So not a hard schedule, not an easy schedule, just kind of an average schedule there, and they are projected at 10.5 wins over there. Pro Football Focus, they have this team power ranked 5th heading into the season, but they have them as the highest projection of 11.2 wins for this Packers team. The offensive line, middle of the pack again here, mainly because their center, Corey Linsley, who has been an absolute stud, one of the very best centers in all of football, is gone. He was the league's best graded center last year, and he is on another team. David Bakhtiari, absolute stud. However, he's the best pass blocking guard in all of the NFL, and he has been for the past 3 seasons. So he's coming back off of injury as well, but it does look like he is going to be good to go. At the right tackle position, it looks like it might be Billy Turner's job after Rick Wagner left there for this team. So a little bit, Turner's kind of a middling tackle. So, I mean, there's stuff going on here with this offensive line. Josh Myers is a rookie who's going to have to fill in at center, which is not great because, again, typically rookie offensive linemen, it takes them a year to kind of get going here. So just overall, you see why this is kind of a middling group as opposed to by the way, a top 3 group last year overall as far as how that graded out. On the defensive line, kind of middle of the pack as well heading into the season. You've got Zadarius Smith, who's awesome. You got Kenny Clark, who's awesome. They're both top 10 at their position whenever we look at how they've graded out over the last couple of seasons. But then after that, you've got Rashawn Gary, who has just really not lived up to the hype after coming out of college. I mean, a guy that had so much steam coming out of college and really has not lived up to any of that since he's been in the NFL. They're going to need some big-time improvement out of him if this defensive line is actually going to be a big-time force for this team, or if it's just going to be kind of an average middle of the pack type deal, which again, this is why I think that this Packers team is fairly interesting as we go in. A middling, middle of the pack offensive line, middling, middle of the pack defensive line. So what happens about the secondary? Well, at least the secondary should be a very big strength for this team. One of the things we do know, if the defensive line can at least get a little bit of pressure, it helps out the secondary. And when you have a secondary that's led by Jair Alexander at corner, you got Adrian Amos at safety. They are both inside the top 2 at their positions in WAR, which is wins above replacement level player. So we are talking 2 absolute studs that they have in the secondary. The real question with the secondary comes at the other safety position and the other corner position, because if Darnell Savage, who was better in year 2 than he was in his rookie season, but that doesn't say much. He was really bad in his rookie season. He did take a step in year 2, but he is not anywhere close to even being above average so far in his career. So they're going to need more consistent play out of him. And then really, who's going to start at this other corner spot? Because they re-signed Kevin King, but they drafted Eric Stokes in the first round. So Kevin King, who has been, again, another big disappointment, a guy that, super highly touted coming in the NFL, really has never lived up to his hype either. They re-signed him, but then they draft Eric Stokes in the first round. So is it going to be King on the other side? Is it going to be Stokes? That's what we'll figure out whenever we get around to week 1. So the 2 definite big-time pluses for this secondary and then 2 big-time question marks could leave this kind of an interesting defense as we move into the season here. On the offensive side of the ball, Aaron Rodgers is back. Davante Adams is back. Aaron Jones is back. I don't really think I need to tell you much more than that. I mean, this was one of the more pass-heavy teams in the league. They passed 56.1% of the time in situation neutral early downs, which was 8th in the league, which is a good thing because this is the way that the league has changed and the way that the calls are going. You should be passing more in situation neutral early down situations. And so the Packers been ahead of that trend. You got Aaron Rodgers, you got Davante Adams, you got Aaron Jones. I mean, this offense, when you think about it. Now, who's going to be that secondary receiver? That is still who is going to fully step up and be that secondary receiver? Because basically, when I say who's going to be that secondary receiver, Aaron Rodgers has just kind of had to pick and choose who's going to be the secondary receiver. It's like, oh, okay, this guy is playing good today, so you, Alan Lazard, are now going to be this, exactly. Or you, Marcus Valdez-Scantling, are going to be the secondary. Can someone just step up and be the week in, week out, I am the number 2 guy who's going to produce consistently and not drop balls and get open and stuff like that? And if they can get that, then probably they can come close to, I don't think they're going to replicate what they did last year, but I think at least come close. That offensive line, again, it's going to be not as good. And so there's something that we have to glean from that, like, yes, as good as Aaron Rodgers is, and as good as Devontae Adams is, and all the things like that, if the offensive line isn't as good, if he's facing more pressure, if they're in his face more often, he's getting hit more often, then there's likely to be a step back taken here for this team. And so for me, I like the Vikings in this division, I think, a little bit more than a lot of people do. That being said, I do believe that the Packers are rightfully the favorite here. That win total of 10 is pretty interesting. Of course, 17-game season. That would be a 10-7 season as a push. So I think that that's probably right on as well. I think, that being said, I think probably on that win total at 10, Femi, I don't know what you think, but that's probably like your worst case scenario is a push, unless you lose Aaron Rodgers or whatever. But 10-7 for this team seems maybe like a worst case scenario.
Yeah, I mean, it almost feels like with that win total, it's like the odds makers have been trying to jump the gun on people, trying to sell high on this Green Bay team. I know after the 2019 season, they were a popular fade heading into 2020. Everyone says, oh, look how many close games they won. This team, Aaron Rodgers, isn't that great. The offensive line stepped up, Matt LaFleur, and they really kind of were more in sync in 2020, able to replicate it and win 13 games again. So it almost feels like it's the odds makers looking at, hey, we know that you guys have been looking to fade this team. We know it. And now we're just going to cut you off. And instead of giving you a 10.5 or an 11 win total for you to go under, they give you that 10 where it's like, I'm having a hard time envisioning Aaron Rodgers, if he stays healthy, only going 9-8 in a 17-game season. So I know the uncertainties, and you brought the offensive lineup, which is what I wanted to ask you about. That's such a big component of their team last year. The fact that that's just kind of a little bit in flux. I mean, Bakhtiari, we expect him to come back to form.
But will he? But I mean, coming off of a major knee injury, with these offensive linemen, that's the deal. It's so he's so good that even 90% of him is better than most of whatever.
Yes.
But that being said, it's so he's 10% down. You lose the best center in the game. Yeah. Now you're having to start a rookie, by the way, at a center position. There are question marks that I think people just are looking at this going, oh, Aaron Rodgers is back, everything's gonna be perfectly fine. And you got to look under the hood sometimes with this.
Yeah, stuff like this. And you really do have to look under the hood, because I mean, I know there's been a lot of talk about the NFC West teams, the Rams, the 49ers, but this Packers team, they were right there in the NFC title game. But like you mentioned, all these things kind of working against them in 2021, it might not come to fruition. Now, on the other side of the ball, for defense, I mean, sometimes just changing the scheme can help guys get better. I know Preston Smith has talked about how he's kind of changed his body. Yeah. He really fell off in 2020. Maybe he can get back to that 2019 form when it was the Smith brothers with him and Zadarius Smith. Maybe for Kevin King and for Darnell Savage, maybe this Joe Barry scheme is a little bit better than the Mike Pettin scheme. Who knows how that kind of plays out.